Okay, I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. Today, we're going to be reviewing The Walking Drum by Louis L'Amour. Now, this novel, I'm going to just be frank with you, I don't think I cared for it as much as, well, it might be my least favorite Louis L'Amour novel. However, it's got one of my favorite lines in it. So, one of my favorite authors, one of my least favorite books that he's written, has one of my favorite lines in it. And this is the line: "No book is as important for what it is as for what it makes you think." I might write that up and hang it in my library somewhere. I love that quote so much. No book is as important for what it is as for what it makes you think. Let's get into The Walking Drum. I got 2 copies of it here. We always review the covers. Which one do I like better? Okay, this is the modern day cover by Greg Manches, one of our leading illustrators of fantasy books and science fiction books. And he's done quite a lot of the modern day Louis L'Amour covers, and he does a really good job. I think that's a good painting of a Spanish guy by a broken ship with some knights hunting him. This one is a painting by Robert Hunt of a Spanish guy. Well, actually, he's French, probably. If the main character, if these are representative of the main character, if I were to take my pick, just graphic design wise, because I love graphic design and illustration, and I love the 2 packaged together, I think I would lean more towards this older one. This is the original one, than the new modern one, just because I think the whole thing is just, I love the fact that all the action is at the very tippy bottom of the, and then all of our big graphic design up top. This is more blocky and clunky in my opinion. Both illustrations, though, are top notch. And there's a map, and there's a lot of maps in these too, because we're talking about historical fiction here. That's not Westerns. Louis L'Amour is known for his Westerns, and I have every single Louis L'Amour Western novel here. This is my Louis L'Amour collection. Got them all. This is his venture into historical fiction. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you the history of this book a little bit. He wrote this in 1960. It was going to be the first book in a planned trilogy. Most of the Louis L'Amour Westerns were usually about 200 pages each. This one was about 700 pages. I mean, he knocked his socks off. This was his baby. This was his pet project. He loved writing Westerns, but he wanted to branch out from that. He didn't want to be known just as a Western guy. So in 1960, and he was a successful Western author. I mean, one of the most successful in the world, and his publishers loved his Westerns. And then he turned in this 700-page manuscript for this historical novel set in, the Crusader years, ancient France, ancient Spain, ancient Middle East. This adventure novel with swords and knights and infidels and crusades and jihads and everything else. And the publishers were like, no, we're not going to, no. They rejected it. Their best-selling author. Now, this is a lesson for y'all wannabe writers that want to get traditionally published. I'm traditionally published. Doesn't matter how big of a writer you are. They might reject your next novel just because they don't want to put it out, because they don't think it fits your brand. This happened to Ken Follett when he wrote Pillars of the Earth. He was known as a thriller writer. He wrote World War II, Cold War thrillers, and then suddenly he came out with Pillars of the Earth, which was this epic historical novel about people building a cathedral in southern England, and his publisher was like, I don't think so. Same thing happened to Robert McCammon. He was known as a horror writer, and then he came up with Boy's Life. And the publisher was like, no, that's not like your typical stuff. We don't want to publish it. I mean, what happened is the same with Boy's Life and Pillars of the Earth. Those books eventually became published, and they became the top-selling books from those already hugely popular authors. And that's what happened with The Walking Drum. 15 years go by. 1960, no, 25 years go by. He wrote this in 1960. 25 years go by, and his editor calls him and says, "Hey, remember that historical epic you sent me like 25 years ago? I think I made a mistake. I think we should publish that. I think," and this happened in 1984, and so they finally published it in 1984. And just like Pillars of the Earth from Ken Follett and Boy's Life from Robert McCammon, it became Louis L'Amour's top-selling novel of all time. People loved it. People dug it. First book in a planned trilogy. However, he never did get to write the other books in the trilogy because, he passed away. He passed away shortly thereafter. But a lot of people love this. A lot of people think it's his best book. I happen to love his Western novel. I mean, I read this when I was a kid, and I was sort of ho-hum about it. I just reread it. I mean, I hadn't touched it since I was a teenager. I just reread it for the review lately, and I'm telling you, I'm still ho-hum about it. And I'll get into the reasons why. Usually I only review books that I gush about. And there's some things that I am going to gush about. But there's other things that I just personally didn't care for. And they're minimal, but it was because, you know I love Louis L'Amour. I've got all of his stuff. All of his Westerns are smashingly awesome. I just didn't... You would think someone like me who writes fantasy novels and who loves historical fiction like Bernard Cornwell and Ken Follett and Con Iggulden and all of those guys, you would think my favorite Western writer doing a historical fiction would be right up my alley, but you would be wrong. You would be wrong. This thing it was a slog for me to get through it. A slog for me to get through it. And I know that a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, because this is the favorite Louis L'Amour novel of a lot of people out there. You know, I'll read the back rather than just tell you. I mean, this is about, I'll just read the back of it. At the center of the walking drum is Kurbashard, one of Louis L'Amour's greatest heroes, warrior, lover, scholar. Kurbashard is a daring seeker of knowledge and fortune bound on a journey of enormous challenge, danger, and revenge. Across Europe, the Russian steppes, and through the Byzantine wonders of Constantinople and in the gateway to Asia, Kurbashard is thrust into the heart of a treacherous, passionate, violent, and dazzling wonder of a magnificent time. From castle to slave galley, from sword-racked battlefields to princesses' secret chambers, and ultimately to the impregnable fortress of the Valley of Assassins. The Walking Drum is a powerful adventure of an ancient world you will find every bit as riveting as his stories of the American West. Oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. But let me tell you, one of the reasons I didn't care for this is there's no plot. It's just our main guy, and it's told in first person, and you know I hate first person. So there, it's got to strike against it right there. It's told from the first person of our main man, Kurbashard, Matt Kurbashard, or Matron Kurbashard, and he's on a quest. He's a rich man's son. I mean, his father is Jean Kurbashard is a French aristocratic noble who owns a castle. Well, Jean Kurbashard, the father, is off on adventures, and the castle is raided in France, and Matron Kurbashard's mother and family are killed by the raiders, and so now he's homeless, and so the only thing he has left to do is go in search of his father, who is known as this great adventurer. And so that's the story. That's the whole plot of it. It's just him leaving France, sailing with pirates and ne'er-do-wells around the coast of Spain and into Cadiz and around and up and through the Mediterranean, and it's just, there's no real plot. It's just one kind of like adventure after the other. And here we go. This is what I see. This is the trouble I get into here. I get out of it. I move on. I get out of it. There's more trouble here. I get out of it. I move on. And so it's just kind of like a travel log of him going from place to place, doing thing to thing, with no real plot threads through it other than he's searching for his father, kind of a thing. I mean, there's a little more to it. The one strength of it, though, is the strength of the book is Louis L'Amour wrote it, and so the writing is top-notch. The writing is fantastic. Every place where Kubishard goes, whether it's Cadiz, Spain, or Portugal. I think that's Portugal. I don't remember where Cadiz is. Or, the Mediterranean Sea, or the Holy Land, or the Russian steppes, or back to France, or wherever, Paris, wherever he's at. Louis L'Amour does a spectacular job of letting you feel, smell, see every bit of minutia and flavor of that exotic locale. So I did enjoy the book on that level, in that, yeah, I've never been to the Russian steppes and I've never been to Constantinople, but Louis L'Amour described it so well that I felt like, I had touched it briefly. But there's no real plot other than him searching for his father, and just one thing after the next happens to him, That's about all I got to say about it. And that's why, because all of his Western novels are very, very plot driven. They've got a lot of plot going through it. So I'm thinking that maybe this was a setup novel for the rest of the trilogy that was going to be more plot driven, because it does kind of leave off giving you that feeling that there's the things that happened in this book might tie into the rest of the story that never will be told, which is unfortunate, because maybe that's what I'm missing. If I don't like this book, that's a me problem. And I'm not saying I didn't like it. Actually, it's an average book. It's going to go onto my... it's been in my collection. I've never gotten rid of it. If there's a book in my collection, it means that I pretty much liked it. And this was average for me. I know it was mostly negative review. Average book for me. I give it a 5.5 out of 10. It's slightly better than average just because Louis L'Amour is such an awesome writer, and I enjoy his prose. So he could write the phone book if he put it in his own prose. I'd probably give that a 5 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Give it a shot if you think that you'll like. Most people like it way better than I did. The Walking Drum.